Sing us the song of your people.
Tiger train, chuffa, 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 chuffa. Moo, moo. Howdy, welcome to Sneppurrsode 18 of the Where Are We podcast. I am Orange Wolf, your host, and today I'm joined by BlackPaws, Blue Tiger, and TigerAcolyte. Say hey, everybody.
Hey, you.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, we didn't do the start-a-woo. Okay, let's just do that start-a-woo. Start-a-woo. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Awoo.
I just actually did that so people could hear us do that in the recording. So, haha. How have you guys been?
Tired.
And tigered.
Tired.
Lazy cats.
Pretty much.
Everybody enjoying this spring, summer, winter mishmash thing we've had going on?
No, I'm not allowed to have summer, is what I've determined. It comes for one day and then leaves, and we get snow.
Snow? What's that?
Well, we've had a lot of snow too. Well, we had snow like the day after a 75-degree day, so it's just kind of weird, atypical, stormy stuff. I don't know who the storm caller is around here, but he needs to be fired.
So yeah, other than that, just working, school, and doing my best to avoid most news sources because I don't enjoy any of them. And congratulations to the world for seeing a middle-aged man have his midlife crisis and buy expensive toys to do God only knows what with them.
I feel somewhat enlightened that I actually have no idea what you're talking about.
The muskrat.
Oh, Twitter. You're not
buying the bird.
Blue, you're not even on Twitter, and you're going to bring that up.
I know I'm not, but it's the news that's been all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know. So what is that, like something along the lines of one of the things they're trying to do is make accounts verified now, I guess, trying to strike the anonymity of accounts. That's going to put a hurting on some people.
We understand you're upset by this, Zef, but you'll get over it.
I'm crying a river. Is there anything that's any relevant news? We do have news. So BlackPaws had a birthday.
Yes, he did.
Do we need to sing now?
I thought you were kidding about bringing that up.
Happy birthday to you. So, what did you do for your birthday?
I did some stuff with relatives on the days surrounding it, but on the actual day, I pretty much did nothing but sleep in and eat a large hunk of steak, which actually counts as a pretty good day in my book.
I would say that sounds like a phenomenal day.
Phenomenal. Because steak.
But yeah, another sun revolution has been completed.
Hopefully many, many more. But don't you foxes get to live like thousands of years?
Some do, and I suppose, and sometimes, not encased in stone.
Does that mean you're a kitsune?
I have a hard enough time contemplating, normal foxhood. I'm not sure I could start thinking about things that at this point.
I don't know. You're talking like you're thousands of years old. What other kind of fox could you be?
I'm thinking that, there's a rock that recently cracked, so,
But that's recently.
Why is our lawyer writing kanji on talismans? That's interesting.
But like you said, recently. I mean, I've been around longer than that.
Well, that doesn't mean you didn't do time manipulation.
Oh, I didn't actually exist until the day after.
No, you would circle back in time. I mean, they are magical creatures, and just take the route at that point.
I guess to ask point blank, did you do the time warp again?
Only in Magic the Gathering.
Oh, you play Magic?
I have, at least, yes.
Oh, have. Okay, so
yeah.
You do not actively.
Well, I mean, even if I wanted to, it's been hard lately because of events. So
they've got some like online free variants of Magic, and I've not played them yet, so I can't really vouch for them. But I've been curious about. I used to play the I guess you call it tabletop version, the actual card version. So haven't done that in a while.
I got a bunch of cards still.
Same here.
Yeah, the MTG Arena is not bad. In fact, there's some really nice things about it because it doesn't allow you to screw up your turns and all that stuff. But I've got a bunch of cards around here. I actually got recently some of the new Werewolf deck cards. I didn't get as many werewolves as I wanted, but some of the art is pretty cool.
remember. Was that like a Werewolf the Apocalypse crossover or something else?
No, I don't have anything right here on my desk at the moment, so I don't remember what it was technically called, but
It's from a world of basic horror stuff. Vampires and werewolves and zombies and all that good stuff.
So a world more fun than the normal one that we live in.
Oh, in some ways, I suppose. But in others, there's a whole humanity under siege and bloody death things,
they deserve
which
it.
some people might not enjoy.
They deserve it. I'm just putting it out there. They deserve it. Just look around at society right now.
So Blue, you wrapped up another semester, didn't you?
5 weeks back now, I think. But yes, I wrapped up my semester, wrapped up another one of my courses, one of my core courses, got my A. Not the A I wanted, of course, but the A nonetheless.
Not the A you wanted.
Not A enough. It wasn't an A
It's not
minus,
A
it was
enough.
an A, which is high as you can get, but it wasn't A enough.
He wants an S+.
So I got my full credit of grade points for that course. But I'm confused by the final, and I want to know what I got wrong on the final. I don't have that information yet.
What was this the final one in again?
That one was managerial accounting.
Exciting.
So yes, it deals with how you can slice and dice all sorts of different things that are not part of GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles.
Congrats on
So,
your A.
all the internal books, basically. That's why you have at least 2 books in most businesses. You have the external books, you have the internal books. The internal books give you different information. Well, a different way to look at the information, I should say.
This slicing and dicing also includes humans.
Hmm?
When you just talked about mauling humans, I'm just curious.
He's confusing me, guys.
And how you been, TA?
I had a recent issue with a house builder falling through and us dodging a bullet, being on the hook for that, but we are doing good otherwise.
Are you eating as well, or?
I am enjoying a cinnamon roll.
Not sharing.
No, I'm sorry. These cinnamon rolls are too delicious. But yeah, not much going on here. Did we have a topic? I didn't think there was a very coherent idea of what we were going to talk
Didn't
about.
talk about how I am doing. Last week or so, I've been on vacation, and it's been a nice break away from electronics. I talk a lot on this podcast about people needing to get off of social media and things like that, and it's been tremendously enriching and recharging for me. I recommend anyone who's feeling like they're too glued to their electronics, get away for a little bit. It'll do you a lot of good. I don't talk about my therianthropic experiences at a very personal level sometimes, but a lot of my vacation involved like touring around new places and kind of just exploring. And while I don't like cities from the perspective of having a lot of people, having a lot of crowds, having a lot of vehicles and stuff like that too, I do love being able to explore in places like that. So I feel like it gave me that opportunity to kind of enrich the inner critter, so to speak. I went to Savannah, Georgia, and there were some very beautiful outdoorsy places that were actually in the city. And it's nice to have that, nice to be surrounded by nature, see a lot of birds all over the place. A lot of dogs all over the place too, which was really cool. It's a very dog-friendly city, so there were a lot of orcs.
Question. Well,
Yes.
number one, sorry, I completely forgot you didn't go yet. 2, how is an outdoorsy city?
1, rude. 2, so Savannah's interesting. It's like the city is a major grid, and like every few blocks they have like a really nice park. So like within the city, it's not like super big, like probably nowhere near as big as what like Central Park is in New York. I wouldn't know, I've not been there, but still every few blocks you get that break away from like all of the humanity, and you get these spots where you can go in and find some quiet and nature and just kind of get back in touch with that. So it's interesting because you are in a city and there are people all around, but there are pockets of nature there, and it was cool to have the opportunity to kind of go there and be able to vibe in the midst of all of the other exploration too.
So you're surrounded by buildings, but there's still nature for you to vibe in.
Yes. Hey, it works.
Interesting. I wouldn't think something like that would be terribly enjoyable if you're surrounded by reminders that you're in a concrete prison.
Well, it's portions of the trip too. We had some events that were planned, and I kind of challenged myself to be the lead in that sort of regard. So some of the exploration was led by me. So while I understand, yeah, it's concrete city sort of thing, I enjoyed sort of setting a direction and just kind of seeing where I went, exploring in that kind of avenue. Yeah, there were people still around. Yeah, I had to watch out for cars and things like that too, but it was nice to just kind of roam, basically. Well, yeah, being in a city in that kind of regard can feel constraining. I kind of just tried to like not focus on that and tried to satisfy the roam aspect of that nature.
I would think that being in an environment like that is superior to most. I mean, at the end of the day, we all need to deal with society at some level, shape, or form. And at least being in an environment like that where you have those abilities to break, even if they're a little bit designed, I would find that far more enjoyable than some of the places that I've been.
Do you live close to like Central Park? You're one of those New York people, right?
No, I'm not a New York person.
But like, have you ever been there?
Have I been to New York? New York, yes.
Well, Central Park.
I've been adjacent to Central Park. I haven't actually walked in Central Park myself. Business didn't permit that, but some of the places I've been have been very in close proximity.
I was there a very, very long time ago. Never got to Central Park, though.
I was curious from the same avenue. Like, Savannah is probably nowhere near as tight-packed as a place like New York is, by any means. So, populated and popular area, yes, but I think it's toned down. But I'm so curious, like, if people find places like Central Park or whatnot, if that gives them that satisfactory sort of, yeah, it might just be a small smidge of nature, but it's still connecting to it in a sense.
That's something I've considered, because there's this park relatively nearby that has basically a clump of trees in the middle of it. If you go on the outskirts of this clump, which isn't very big, you can hear road noise or see the surrounding houses. But if you go into a place just right in the middle and sort of tune a lot of noises out, you can almost sort of not exactly forget, but pretend, I suppose, that you're in the middle of nowhere. And it's interesting, kind of nice. It's kind of nice to have. I mean, it's not something I ever expected to find.
And situationally, for some people, that may be the closest that they have to get back to nature on a more daily basis too.
Mm-hmm.
The focus of this trip wasn't to get out and do like a lot of hiking and stuff like that either. That's why I thought it was kind of interesting, because I didn't expect to have that kind of like natural connection to it. But I have to admit, like, I've seen some of the scenery from like Georgia before, and I really like the large kind of gnarled oaks with the Spanish moss on them. I find that very appealing, like scenery to kind of be around or to see. So being around that was kind of cool anyway. So I don't know. I had a good time. I thought it was fun.
So whereas the back to nature stuff, as you put it, sort of spontaneous on your part, or?
Yes and no. This was a place that I'd never been to before, so it was just I kind of wanted to experience that while doing some other things too. Savannah has a lot of history around it. There's natural history, there's a lot of human history. We actually did some ghost tours, things like that too. So it was kind of like a well-rounded mix of experience. I kind of wanted to be immersed in several things, and I thought I got a good opportunity to do that. I'm also going to report that Secret Doggo had to go to like a Secret Doggo secret vacation resort, and they gave a report card of her behavior, and she got an A+ too. So Blue, I think Secret Doggo got a better grade than you do. Sorry.
But she is the alpha.
She is. I'm kind of disappointed though, because it's like, I don't know. It says that she cuddled everybody. And I'm like, no loyalty.
Well, that's one's perspective to put it.
It was a really good feeling to have that kind of response, though, because we've trained her since she was a puppy, and sometimes it feels like, is this training ever going to pay off? So getting positive feedback from strangers that, you know, my dogger was excellently behaved and pretty much like gold star child. It's I was proud of her.
Your kid brought home an A+ report card. That's a nice thing.
And we actually put it on the refrigerator too.
Yes.
I give Kay the credit.
It's probably due there. All right, does anybody else have anything to recap in that kind of vein before we move on with the main stuff?
You know, for me personally, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the podcast here. If you're listening from Ukraine, we support you. At least I support you. I have friends there and connections there, and what is happening is just beyond my fathoming. I've been in contact with a lot of people there about making sure they're okay, and, you know, glory to Ukraine.
Generally, are they doing okay? Are the people you know over there doing okay?
Yeah, for the most part. You know, a few have joined the forces. Most are staying safe in the western city of Lviv. Some have fled, but for the most part, they're holding up, and because of their skills and abilities in the information technology and software worlds here, some of, you know, they're putting their skills to good use. We'll put it that way.
Okay, well, that's definitely not nothing.
Yeah, it's not nothing, but it just boggles my mind that what's going on. And here in the States, been my observation that people are starting to already become apathetic to it. So they don't have that luxury. So sorry, guys, to spring that. I kind of popped in my head, and I was like, I got to say something.
Thank you for saying that.
No problem.
All right, so yeah, for this episode, we have one book that we want to discuss, and we're going to do that somewhat briefly because we are waiting for Callisto Wolf to have the opportunity to join in the conversation. And there's also an Audible book, and I believe it was free.
Yes, that one was free.
Called
The Werewolf's 15 Minutes.
Yes. So there are two articles of media that may be relevant or interesting to Therians, and we'd like to kind of discuss them a little bit. This is also intended to kind of break the ice. So if you listen in and you indulge in these articles of media and you want to come on and discuss with us, please reach out to us. If you have any suggestions of Therian content that we can look at and review, we're not doing this for any kind of endorsement or anything like that. We're pretty much just trying to help people, I don't know, find things that they might find interesting, you know, kind of help network.
Don't know much about the author or why he was inspired to write this. It was definitely an interesting book. It was told from the perspective of a young wolf initially. You kind of see it evolve through some of the lifetime there too. I think it was very well done overall, honestly. I have reached out to the author and provided my feedback to him. I thought it was, you know, like the first half I actually really thought was really on point, really interesting. And I was curious as to what inspired, and didn't get a clear answer, which is kind of cool though. Authors can keep their mystery, and I appreciate that too. So what I really did enjoy was, you know, he kind of did this entire thread of the family connection and seeing some of the conflict within even a family unit, and eventually kind of breaking free of that and finding their own way. Don't want to give too much of the book away. Ultimately, probably my only frustration with it, and I did express that to him as well. Towards the end, it just kind of, it didn't fall flat. It wasn't that it didn't stay true to what he was doing. I felt there was something that was missing at the end. I think it's the best way I can describe it. I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed it, though. I really thought it was a very interesting book in a different perspective, and I thought it was fascinating the way he approached the whole situation, and really captured a very feral point of view in a very unique way. I don't know about you, Zef, but what do you think?
About that, I'm going to back up a little bit too. Again, for those listening in, this is Brilliant White Peaks, and the author is Tang Rong. And a listener of the podcast reached out and was like, hey, you might like this, check it out. And I actually went with the audiobook version on Audible because I cannot find time to actually read. And sorry about that. I actually want to say that, like, the voice would be the narrator on Audible, I think did like an astounding job. Like, it was actually very pleasurable to listen to it also. I was curious like what canine therians would take away from it, because I joke about being Orange Wolf, but I'm clearly a coyote, but like the overall arc of the story seems to follow the life cycle of a particular wolf, and the way that I liked things are being approached in a, what I would say, I think Blue said a very feral point of view. That's very accurate, I think. So I'm curious, like, how that will resonate with Therian listeners, like if that kind of story, seeing something narrated from a feral perspective, if that makes it more exciting or more identifiable for them. I didn't quite relate to the some of the pack dynamics and things like that either, but I think it gave me an interesting it gave me actually some food for thought for like reaching out to some canine therians and saying, hey, curious, but is this how family dynamics actually feel for you, or is this how you would approach some things in life? So I thought it was kind of interesting from that perspective, and the ability to kind of try to put myself in the main character's paws, so to speak, to try to kind of empathize with that experience. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would probably critique from the family dynamics heavily is the interaction between his brother and his parents early in the book. Yes, I think that could potentially happen, but I think it's more mundane when something like that happens and a dispersal ends up happening. I think that the other aspects of it, especially the interaction with the parents, that interaction with the sister, was very on point, very interesting. There's kind of folklore, for lack of a better term, because it's difficult to actually observe of some of that, support structure, etc., between siblings. But I would subscribe to that myself, at least based on what I feel. And then in the latter part, with the growing family in that case, I think there was some realistic aspects of that, and trying to ensure protection and be there for the difficult times as well. So I think I really thought there was a lot of good bits and pieces in there. Maybe not a true through line, but a lot of nuggets that were definitely accurate.
I thought that some of the difficult times were relatable too. They weren't too overtly like fantastical.
Yes.
So, and I do want to put out too that while the story is narrated through like a feral point of view, there are conversations between the different characters too. So there is like this slight touch of anthropomorphism in that sense. So it's not that you're not reading like emotes the entire time. There are conversations that kind of relay information between the characters as well. And to me, I don't think that I don't think that detracted.
No, it didn't detract at all.
It seemed to certainly fit with the form of narration style that the book went through. So as a Tiger Therian, I enjoyed the book and glad I gave it a chance. I am curious to hear from more Therians. We have Callisto Wolf, who's been on the podcast before, is going through, but he's currently out hiking in the middle of the Appalachian Trail, so it might be a while before we can have him on to discuss the book too. I'm curious in seeing like how other Therians relate to it. Like for the canine Therians, does it seem like a very relatable projection of what your therianthropy is like, I guess, in a sense? Does it really explain the dynamics of how you perceive the world and things like that? And for non-canine Therians who are interested in checking out, I'm kind of curious, like, do you have the similar experience to what I do, where it helps you empathize somewhat with canine Therians, or with some dynamics that maybe you don't personally feel? Kind of curious about that.
Interesting question. I mean, especially since you're, for the sake of discussion, you're sort of lumping all the canine Therians together, and now I'm wondering, if Blaze were here as a wolf dog, would he have exactly the same perspective as Blue Wolf here does?
You make a fair point there, and I do apologize for that. It does make sense.
Yeah. It was the contrast you're drawing between the book perspective and yourself personally, but
you animal people.
I mean, I haven't read the book, but going off of experience, whenever I've tried to read something from the viewpoint of another animal that isn't a cat or feline, especially if it's like a dog or something, it triggers a kind of dysphoria in me that makes it hard for me to continue reading.
And see, for me, and you can correct me if I'm remembering this incorrectly, Blue, but I don't think the narration was poised in such a way, like I didn't feel like I was the main character in that kind of sense.
It was definitely
so there wasn't a disconnect there. Yeah. So if I made that sound otherwise,
that tends to be easier.
So yeah, just to clarify that.
Yeah, I think there's enough interaction between the characters that is captured in the prose to make it, yes, there's points that it's almost like a soliloquy, but there's enough interactions and then dialogue that it makes it much more of you're an observer to this, even though the primary narration is from a particular individual's point of view.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, I will leave a link in the description for that for those who are interested. And if you give it a check and you want to give us some feedback, if you give it a look or a listen and you want to get in touch with us to have further discussion, we would appreciate that. Is there anything else you want to bring up with that, Blue?
Not on that one, no. I'm looking forward to getting Callisto's perspective too, and if anyone does want to join into the dialogue as well, please. We'd be more than happy to entertain that.
I never responded to him, and I feel bad for that. Sorry, Callisto. But I think he read the first chapter, and he had a lot of response to it, so I'm very interested in having his discussion as well. So hopefully in the near future.
So the other one that we wanted to talk about was the Audible original, The Werewolf's 15 Minutes. That was entertaining. It was, I would say, very lighthearted.
Very lighthearted, very tongue-in-cheeky.
Yes. That's probably a better way to describe it.
So for the pups out there, it may have some content that your parents may not be 100% with. Like there's some adult references and whatnot, not like sexual things.
A few things that border there, though.
Yeah. So
There is some gore and situations like that, and some other subjects. Yes.
So use discretion. So,
Your discretion is advised.
But yeah. Well, yes. Well, listener.
Yes.
The premise is that there is a real life werewolf, and he freaks out his friends by showing them the transformation, and then that becomes kind of a thing, and it gets posted onto social media and becomes a big sensation. And then of course everyone doubting it and like, oh wow, that's amazing, camera angles and editing techniques and everything like that. So they go out of their way to prove that it's not that it's real. And it creates quite a buzz, and the reaction of the world, the social media world, to this, and a lot of sympathy in a lot of ways for the main character with that, because here they are, they're almost in a way persecuted, because you've got the Bible thumpers over there, screaming, the devil, the devil, the devil, and you have others, saying, no, this is something unique and something to be cherished and something special. And the ride high, and of course, when you ride high, there's going to be a crash, and that crash, because of a simple mistake and then some terminology that is used, and just seeing it kind of all dissolve. So it's really the rise and the peak, and then the crash of the 15 minutes of fame analogy. I thought it was very enjoyable. It's a short little story. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's not actually 15 minutes long. I think how long was it? Like probably 2 hours.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours, but it is a free Audible original. You have Audible, and it just is it's got a lot of current references, very modern references. I found the ending very, very satisfying, honestly.
Of course you did. No spoilers though.
I'm not spoiling it. I'm just saying I found it satisfying.
I agree. I think it's a very contemporary take on, like, okay, well, if you well, this is going to be hypothetical for the listeners. If you were some sort of were creature in a world full of non-were creatures, how would life be for you, and what would happen if you had these things to try to express? And what I thought was interesting is it does center quite a bit on social media, and I think it has some very important lessons for especially younger Therians who get very involved in social media trends and things like that.
Yes.
It's very easy to become manipulated into sort of losing yourself in the process of proving yourself. Sometimes it's a complicated thing there. A single semantic can turn someone's world entirely around, and I think that's very relatable in contemporary society. And it gave some definite food for thought from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that, aside from just being an enjoyable, take on a modern werewolf take, it was definitely a fresh perspective on it. That capturing of the social media aspect of it, because everything hinges so much around that, just like we see in today's society. And then, are you trending? Are you liked enough? What is the consequences of all that perspective as to how fast things can turn and how fleeting it really is in so many ways. So are you looking for something with depth, or are you looking for something that's kind of a flash in the pan? I like that aspect of it.
There's also sort of like this identity versus validity sort of thing going on too, where again, he sets out to just show everyone, hey, this is something that I deal with on a daily basis. This exists, sort of to bring awareness to it. And again, they start like hitting that angle of, wow, that's a really cool sci-fi effect, and he has to go out of his way to prove, no, this is who I am. It's my validity. He almost becomes trapped by others who are trying to force different kinds of validity on him.
That's fair.
And it's just it becomes a real mess at that point. And I think that's where I definitely relate to that.
I think that's a very good point there of, he definitely got trapped by everything in the whirlwind in association with it. The Werewolf groupies was hilarious too.
Yes. But yeah, I will. So I will also provide a link to that in the description. Again, if you have an Audible service and no, we're not getting promoted or anything like that, it should be for free. I don't know if it's going to be free for people who don't have Audible, but you can probably sign up for a free trial and give it a shot. Not sure about that either.
Yeah, if you sign up for the free trial, I think you can get it for free. I've had an Audible membership for quite a while. I really enjoy it when doing yard work and things like that too. So it's a nice way to take in some more media.
Yeah, it just I cannot find time to read. I really wish that I could. But it's been a very good thing for me. So
yeah, aside from that, I've been kind of plugging through a few other things, a couple werewolf romance novels, which are always fun.
Ooh, steamy.
Oh, of course. And including The Wolf's Gift by Anne Rice, and the follow-up to it was a gift to me for the holidays, and I've been slowly plugging through that. That's a paper copy that's sitting next to the bed. And when I'm in the mood, I'll just kind of sit down and read for an hour or so and get through a bunch of chapters. I know that X and I had a brief conversation about Anne Rice at large, where he had some frustrations with her style always having like an upper class tier, which I can definitely appreciate that perspective, but I don't think it really detracts from the story that she's telling in this case. So about halfway through it, I'm enjoying it. I'll admit it's very well written.
To take a slightly different perspective on this overall, my past and my college training is as a writer, and I've tried at various points in the past, using my skills to try to work through or express some of the stuff I talked about in the last episode, but it's difficult. I mean, maybe it's because, I don't understand myself, or maybe it's because my efforts should be more concentrated on myself rather than, being comprehensible to a general audience.
BP, that's why I like writing poetry, because it doesn't have to be comprehensible to somebody else. I know what it means, and I like that. I like forcing myself into a constrained box in that way, where I'm trying to make every single word count to tell a story, and then seeing the interpretation of others when they read it. I don't do it a lot, but I've written some doozies.
I'm sorry, I got stuck on the box thing.
Mhm.
He is a cat.
Oh yeah,
Fat and
that's
box.
right.
If you haven't noticed, I can meander and ramble and pontificate if necessary. And I like the fact that, the process of getting the initial thoughts down and going through those iterations and refinement, and distilling it down to the core. That's what I really enjoy about it. It's not like I like to limit myself to the number of words or anything like that. I don't like writing haikus, for instance. But when every single line has to count and tell and progress the story, and you want to do it as concisely as possible, that I really, for whatever reason, I really like that, and I can say safely that I loathed poetry in grade school. Loathed it. Didn't want to read it, didn't want to write it, didn't want anything. And that it was a vehicle that made sense for me to work out some emotions and difficulties that I had been suffering at one point, and that kind of opened a door where I've written not many, a couple dozen maybe at most of which have never been shared and won't be shared. But it enabled me to work through some of those difficulties without feeling the need to explain in the hyper detail to try to make sure that, all gaps are closed and I'm getting across exactly what I want to say. This is a almost freeing thing to be able to do and say, if you don't understand it, I really don't care.
Maybe because, my feelings about this kind of thing are, a lot of uncertainty and confusion. Maybe, that's what's coming across when I try to write about it. Maybe that's sort of a natural result. I don't know. Like I said, I've occasionally done it in the hopes of trying to work things out. But, it's not something I've tried for quite a while, actually.
I used to want to write, and I used to try writing a lot, but I think at the time of my life, I took too logical of an approach to writing. And I kind of think back to my childhood, and I'm pretty sure that I'm neurodivergent. I'm not normal, but that's okay. So, in grade school, when we were taught things like poetry, I think that I expected that the world around me thought that there was supposed to be some kind of secret formula or decoder for how things like poetry actually worked. I didn't really appreciate that it was supposed to be my own interpretation. I also felt like I was going to be stupid if I didn't interpret things the way everyone else did. And as an adult, I see it's very much more like Blue just mentioned. It's art in and of itself it's an emotional process, and it's going to mean something different to every person that comes in contact with it. The designer artist is going to have a different thing from it than the audience will, and that's fine. And I think that has helped me to realize that even things like sketching, sometimes they have to flow from the heart, and if I apply too logical or too stringent of a process for it, I will find myself blocked very easily. But if I just kind of feel things out and try not to worry about it so much, it's almost like stream of consciousness, but rather than using words, it's using pencils blending and things like that. Like it's the same can be applied for words too, but it's just a thing to kind of feel out. And I think we try to logically approach so many things in our lives, especially when we know we aren't supposed to be animal people and this and that and the other. It's kind of ingrained in us to be that logically critical toward ourselves, and it's difficult to kind of get away from that.
Yeah. Like I'll remember my freshman year in college. I had a roommate, and we just didn't click. We'll just put it that way. But one of the things that I remember talking to him about was we got into various subjects, and we got talking about it tangential to poetry, and it kind of led into that. And he referenced stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. And that's the one that ends with, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promised to keep in mouth to go before I sleep and mouse to go before I sleep. So you probably learned it in high school. And we got talking about it, and we were kind of given our each interpretation, and he said, well, you know, I did AP courses, and we determined that this is clearly being referenced to Santa Claus. And I said, I don't believe that. I don't think that Robert Frost had Santa Claus in his mind when he wrote this. And he just kind of pounded his fist and said, well, I'm right, and in my class agreed with me, so therefore you're wrong, and just kind of stomped out of the room. I think it's important to be open to interpretation, to, you know, and this could be applied in many ways to yourself as well, and, you know, be open to interpretation, be open to potentially being wrong, be always critical of yourself, or at least looking at yourself in a critical manner, all that stuff. But I really feel it's important that, you know, if you want to have a dialogue, you want to have these discussions, you want to have the fun of the debate, that's what's necessary. It's not, you don't take the hard line. You think about it, you say, oh, maybe that is an interesting interpretation. What about this? And that type of thing. And, you know, that was one of the reasons that we didn't get along, because he was so set that I am right, and I am not someone that just simply says, hey, you're right, and I'm going to accept what you say, and then move on with life. I've gotten to the point now that I just kind of acknowledge you and maybe ignore you at that point, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I don't have any problems on the self-critical part.
What, a fox?
Oh.
Are you sure you're not a wolf? Are you sure?
Who knows about anything? I say.
Black wolf.
I don't know. You ate a lot of steak there.
Really? Okay. Well, yeah, but
How did you have it cooked is the first question, though.
not fair.
Medium rare? Okay, good man. Good.
Are you sure this
good.
isn't some fox prank to throw us off the scent?
Have you ever smelled a fox?
Oh, no. I haven't been able to smell BP across an internet line, no.
I'm just saying, the muskiness is pretty strong.
So I've heard. Yeah.
Oh, BP, you don't have to take that.
Zef would know all about that.
Well, what?
And apparently, I could sound like one just by ratcheting, you know, up the pitch of my voice and screaming at the top of my lungs.
I mean, if you want to try that, we can have the audience, the listeners, gauge whether you're foxy or not.
Ooh, we could do it too. What does the fox say?
Just random screaming.
Because apparently that's
You're getting a double face
Wh-
from me right now.
yes. I feel you there. Apparently, it and was it mountain lions that are commonly cited as possible animal sources of weird noises at night.
Yeah, they sound weird. It's not a roar. It's more of an oof.
I need to step away for just a minute to potty. You guys can continue if you want.
He's going potty. If this makes it in or not doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Remember to bury, Zef.
Oh, I tip my hat to you on that one. Ooh.
So basic and elemental, it blew you away, huh?
Oh. Anyways.
Still tickling you.
Oh. Anyways. Damn it, now I lost my train of thought. Thank you very much.
Wait, what did I miss?
Oh, I hear Zef voices.
What did I miss?
Did you bury?
I did. My letterbox?
Yeah,
Yes.
good.
Oh.
Good wolf.
With a tone of, why is that even a question?
Never mind. I don't. I'm just curious. Like, I came back and Blue was talking about how someone had ruined his train of thought. Who was it? It wasn't me.
No, it was your fellow tiger there talking about burying.
Yeah, I was yelling at you to remember to bury.
Oh, okay. I'm going to leave that in just so people can hear it.
Yes, absolutely. We'll get canceled faster than ever.
This is the kind of nonsense that happens.
All right. So, do we have any other thoughts on media-ish stuff?
Other than there's a lot of good media out there. I'm sure we can continue to pick up pieces. We can do just what are we going through at some point too. That's not even directly related to the Therian subject. So, but anyway, someone ruined my train of thought. So, I think I'm done with that.
It wasn't even me.
It was you by
Tiger
proxy.
train, chuffa, 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 moo moo.
I have no shame.
Okay, so there are a few other like community sponsored things that I want to bring up too. I apologize to the critters who do the Therian Bedtime Stories podcast. I completely didn't mention that episode 4 is out now. It's unfortunate that BearX is not able to be on today, but he is the narrator of the 4th episode, so I will put a link in the description for you all to check that out. The critters that are working on this project are still looking for content, so if you are willing to write up a story that fits in line with what else has been narrated on the channel so far, feel free to reach out to them, and if you are interested in possibly narrating one, reach out to them for that too. Like, basically, they're looking for people who are willing to submit their content and who can help move the project along. I may or may not have narrated one. We'll see in the future, I guess. TA has already done one too, so I think BlackPaws and Blue, one of you has to do it next.
I agree.
I was about to say, I'm not familiar with this series, so how would you describe the kind of content that they're looking for?
So it was intended to be like 5-minute sort of like, well, it's bedtime stories basically,
right,
but from a Therian perspective. So most of them describe scenes where animals are going through nature, almost like in a meditative sense. Mm-hmm. So it's dealing with the sounds that go around them, what they feel, both like what they physically feel, like with their pulse and things like that too, and emotionally. So TA, you did one too, so what do you think about that?
As a narrator, it's a bit odd. You take on a sort of a softer voice.
And now it's time for TA ASMR session.
Oh, jeez. That's what it felt like, though. Jeez.
It sort of does. So, like, Callisto, I think, knocked it out of the park because I think he was the narrator of the first episode.
Oh, yeah.
And
didn't you have
so,
sound effects?
I don't remember. But, like, a week or two ago, I finally sat down and tried recording it for myself. And I ended up sounding really growly. And it just, I don't know. It's interesting to kind of, because it's, I guess for me, narrating someone else's story, I wanted to try to make sure that I did it in a way that really kind of knocked home what they were trying to convey. And it's kind of hard because you're not really in that person's mind. So the whole time I'm like, am I doing this right? I hope I'm doing this right.
I took an approach of having a soft voice for the normal parts, but if there was any kind of action or tension to it, I sort of shortened my voice, got a little more staccato in the way I talked, and then I loosened up if it relaxed out.
The other difficulty that I had personally, knowing that people may be listening to this to kind of help them get into a sleepy mindset, I tried to not make my voice speed up too much, even for moments where there were, like, when I was narrating actions that were going on, because I didn't want it to defeat the purpose. So I was like, I don't know how to really do that, but it's interesting.
I don't know. I don't know how well my interpretation was received, so I could be completely off base on this. But my thoughts were that you can keep it sleepy by sort of modulating, like having a sort of almost a whisper to your voice. Not putting a lot of force into your voice, but sort of changing how I can't even describe what I did, but you're not changing the loudness of your voice or forcefulness. you're changing other things about your voice to imbibe it with a sense of urgency, imbibe it with a sense of time slowing down, I guess. Like you're more in the moment rather than sort of gliding along on this sort of soft thing. And suddenly you stop and you're going from moment to moment in this reading of action. And then once that action is over, you go back to this smooth voice. Again, throughout the entire thing, you're not really raising your voice or putting too much force behind it. You're all keeping it generally the same level.
So yeah, definitely if you are interested, give the episodes that have already been published, give them a listen. I think I put the previous episodes in the description for. And again, I think you can just search for Therian bedtime stories, and I want to say they are on YouTube and Podbean. I'm not sure where else they may be, but give them a listen, and that kind of gives you an idea for like what they're kind of looking for as far as delivery goes. But it'll take a while to kind of, you got to play around with it a little bit, I think.
I consider it if I think I can get into the mood. Well, like I said, my past attempt to, I guess, be expressive and deal with what I'm thinking through writing haven't exactly been successful, but maybe something like this would get me in the right mindset, or more like poetry, Blue said earlier.
These are relatively short stories. I'm going to say like 500 to 800 words. Does that sound about right, DA?
Yeah, thereabouts.
It's like a few pages. It's not super long. Continuing the vein with community creators, Bubbles is looking for interviewees for the next episode of Cheetah Chirps. In this episode, Bubbles would like to interview people who have uncommon stereotypes, and I will list off the questions that are going to be surveyed. Was it more difficult to question and figure out your type than other common types you have, or what you would expect other people with more common types? So basically, does being an uncommon stereotype, do you feel like it made that more difficult for you to figure out your type and such? Number 2, do you find it more difficult to find items that connect you to your type or that are related to your type? 3, is it disheartening to not be able to find many other people that share your species? 4, what activities do you enjoy that help connect you to your uncommon stereotype? Are they unusual or similar to that what other people with more common types do? If you feel like you have a question about, well, what I'll do is I will provide you the email to contact Bubbles directly, or there's also a thread on Therian Guide where you can ask questions there too. Some people have asked, like, what exactly would an uncommon stereotype be? And it can be kind of subjective, but kind of use the general approach of maybe I think the first question kind of hits home there. Is your stereotype so uncommon in the community that it's difficult to find resources on, or it was difficult to come to that conclusion? If that seems to be kind of the case, then you may want to reach out to Bubbles to be interviewed for the next episode of the Cheetah Chirps.
I know Bubbles asked for uncommon stereotypes, but sometimes it feels like, even the ones that some people consider common have the same sort of difficulty. So getting probed at in the question. So I just thought that was, for me, an interesting thought to have.
Understandable. And I mean, debatably, I'm not going to try to speak too much because it's, again, a topic that Bubbles is going to approach. But like as a tiger, people seem to think from the outside that tigers are super common in Therian spaces, and
No,
they're actually really not, at least not in the long term. So it's, for my own personal discovery process, like I didn't know there was a Therian community, so like I don't even know if this really applies to me per se. We mentioned before that like Barax has discussed, like during his process of discovery, werewolf lore was the only thing that was really available, so that's he kind of felt like that's maybe what he had to look for, or in that direction. But as the community has become more accessible, I'm sure some of those dynamics have changed. Like in his case, bears still don't seem common at all. Tigers, I don't know. We still see some tigers here and there, but TA, would you say that tigers are a rare or uncommon stereotype? Sounds like yes.
They are between rare and uncommon, but they are definitely more than uncommon.
Right. So, but again, reach out to Bubbles if you're not sure about whether or not this applies to you. Bubbles may actually be accepting write-ins for people who maybe have more common stereotypes. So BP, it might make sense for you to reach out to him and say, hey, I kind of have these struggles too, even though I have what is considered a more common stereotype. It might be food for thought for future episodes for their podcast too.
Yeah, I'll turn it over my head, I think.
Round and round like a wheel.
Yep. In circles, yes.
All right, 2 more things. Last episode, I mentioned that there may be a howl going on in New Jersey. I think I brought that up. The host has confirmed that the site has been paid for, and there are links now on both Werelist and Therian Guide. So if you are interested in attending a New Jersey howl, feel free to check those out. The dates are set in stone. It'll be May 20th through May 22nd. It's not a whole lot of advance notice. So if you are interested, please let the host know as soon as possible. It might be one of those things where if you're closer to the area, it'll be easier to coordinate. Sorry for not having much more notice than that, but again, we'll try to publish this episode out in enough time for you to make whatever arrangements you need to. Additional community news on May 14th, 12 p.m. Central Time. Cheetah and Blood Muffins are going to be hosting the next Serious Therianthropy discussion chat. There are a few different ways that you can log on to IRC to participate in that, and I will try to provide links to that on both Werelist and Therian Guide as well. The topics for this time: 1. Many of our stereotypes place more emphasis on sense than humans do. Many Therians are likewise, with some even reporting the urge to scent mark. How do you relate to scent, be it your own or others? Question 2. If you had pets during childhood, do you think therianthropy affected how you related to them? Do you think they affected your therianthropy? If so, how? Question 3. Do you experience dream shifts? If so, what are they like? How often do you have them? And how important do you feel they are? If you are interested in checking that out, please do participate. And look for links to those in the description. Any other comments or anything like that before we close?
Just that I'm always looking out, or this discussion has inspired me to, maybe try to look out for, more Therian-inspired artistic endeavors, and see if it can prod me along, or, somehow. We'll see what y'all find.
Poke at the fox with pencils and crayons and stuff.
I'll take whatever.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening in to the Where Are We podcast. If you have any feedback, would like to offer a suggestion for content, if you might want to hop on the show sometime to discuss one of the topics that we are hosting, things like that, feel free to email us at WereAreWePodcast@gmail.com. I'll have it typed out in the description as well. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay, thanks. Bye.
This is the end.